Welcome to the Millionaire Next Door podcast with Robert Curtis, CFP accredited investment fiduciary from Signature Estate and Investment Advisors. In this podcast, we help successful wealth accumulators like you looking to transition to a work optional lifestyle by helping you build strategies for growing and maintaining your wealth. Robert draws from years of experience and fiduciary responsibility and interviews guest experts to help you build reliable strategies to grow and maintain your wealth. Now, on to the show.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the Millionaire Next Door. Today, I have a repeat guest. This is Mike Sy. He's been on, I think this is his third appearance, but we wanted to sort of explain some of the things that I do in my practice, sort of a little bit more detail about my people, my practice, my process, how it is really a holistic, all-encompassing financial planning practice. The core of it is investment management. That's really where we spend a lot of time. But a lot of folks are looking for more than that. Others don't necessarily know they should be looking for. They're unaware that certain additional elements are available to them. And we wanted to get into that a little bit and why that can be a big value and how that actually looks when you get into the practice of it. So welcome, Mike. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Robert, I always appreciate you having me back on the show, and it just shows it's a testament to what it is you do and what it is that you provide to your clients through continually trying to evolve your process and making it that much better for your clients. So I know you and I have been working together for quite some time now, and I'm always excited to see the progress that you've made as an advisor and the evolution of the process that you provide to your clients. And ultimately, what I wanted to get into today with you as you and I continue to talk every single month, there's so much that you do for your clients throughout the life of the relationship. And I think it's important for your listeners and your clients to continually understand what it is you're doing behind the scenes as a fee-for-service professional. You know, a lot of what I tend to hear being in this business as long as I have and working with as many advisors as I've worked with is that a lot of the focus with clients tends to be on the products that are being utilized, the performance in which is being provided to the client, and then the underlying cost or the fee for service. It tends to be too focused on just performance and just saying that this is my broker or this is my investment guy. I mean, you're literally providing advice beyond investments. And I think that's so important for people to understand. And there could be as many as 40, 50, 60, 70 different things that you provide to a client throughout the life of the relationship. So today, I just wanted to be able to open up and discuss, again, as part of your process, these 7 core pillars that you provide to your clients, just to get a little bit more in depth and some some insight into what you've currently been working on. I figured a really good place to start would be to discuss with clients right now what you've kind of been working on, and as far as the process goes, then maybe we can open it up into some actual experiences that you've recently had with some of your clients.
Yeah, that's perfect, Mike. It really is a process and it's a relationship, just like you said. So it typically starts with investment management and that always carries through, but different needs come up. I've created a piece 42 things we do for you. There's actually probably more. A lot of times people don't realize all the things we're capable of doing and all the elements to the wealth management process that go beyond investment management. So just a couple that came up recently. I mean, in the last couple days, a woman, a widow, wanted to gift off some funds to each of her children. And we were able to set up accounts for the children, get those gifts completed, but really actually kind of activate them as clients more as a favor to her and to help that family. It's a big value-add service, making ourselves available to those folks. I had another client in a similar vein basically ask me to mentor his 26-year-old son who's in the financial service industry but is really frustrated. He does have an account with me, but just the value of that, I mean, that's so over and above. But that's really important. It really speaks to me as someone I've got a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old. So I get it when you just want someone to assist your adult child, and if they're looking out for them. So that's over and above. We don't necessarily push that, but we love to have relationships with those kind of next generation, or if they're important to them, they're important to us. And I had another one very similar. We're still working with her, but a client introduced us to his sister-in-law who had lost her husband relatively recently. So this is the client had lost his brother, but this was his wife. And she, it's a fairly large account held away somewhere, but she has no relationship with the people who are managing it. And she just doesn't understand it. She's overwhelmed. It's not her area of strength. So we've been introduced to help assist her. And so the investment management, all that kind of stuff, tax efficiency, yeah, those are important. But probably far more important is just communicating with her, getting her comfortable, getting her to even talk about this stuff, not on a detailed level, but meeting her where she's at, guiding her, gaining that trust, looking out for her, because her whole world's been turned upside down and she's not comfortable in this space. And she could really use the help. So that's just an example of where we go way beyond. And that's pretty typical on a typical day. But having done it close to 28 years now, it's really those kind of things that I enjoy helping with, because the other is really important, but sometimes the others are far more important, and they evolve as people's lives evolves and circumstances change. So
right. Well, and again, I love hearing your ability to be able to do these things for your clients, because not every advisory firm that I've come across has the ability to be able to provide that time like you do, especially to the next generation, because there's instances where I've seen advisory firms engaging with multiple hundreds of individualized families. And I know with my work with you that you've come to the realization over the years that you can't be all things to all people, but you can to a select group of individuals and families. And that's kind of how you've built your practice to be able to give that tailored approach and an elevated level of service to your clients by going through a very specific fit process to make sure that people are very aligned with you mutually, philosophically, personality wise, that you truly can kind of be that mentor and that guide and that steward to them as their life continues to evolve over time and their needs continue to change, that they can't outgrow your process. They can only continually grow into your process over time. So again, that specific fit process, I think, is so important that you take the time to truly get to understand if it even makes sense with the folks that you're dealing with to even take the next steps together in the relationship. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your fit process and what you tend to take some of your prospective clients through so they get some sort of an idea that if they were to ever potentially engage in your services, what does that kind of experience look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've worked a lot on, say, in the last 3 years, what I call the fit process. I think simply it's just, is it a good fit for them? Is it a good fit for us in the practice? And if we are sort of interviewing a new potential client, we really want to make sure there's a mutual thumbs up on both sides. It's a good fit for us, for my team, for myself. Life's too short to not really be paired up with people that really matter, that add a lot of value, that you enjoy the relationship. I've been doing this a long time, but I plan to do it a really long time further because I really enjoy what I do. I like to say I don't have to do this any longer. I get to do this. So I've limited the practice. I have about 80, 85 families. I let people know it's a big deal to be part of that community, but we can go much deeper on all these types of things. And I plan to be doing it a lot longer because I really, really enjoy it. But I want that to be fits. And sometimes that amongst that 80, 85, those are other people within a family, adult children, that kind of stuff, to go deeper into that to help them in a multi-generational fashion. But if folks aren't a good fit, it really just does not make too much sense to engage. People have a lot of choices out there, but we're not looking to just bring on anyone. And to be part of that community, we want to be doing all things for certain folks, but not all things to all people at all. So it's somewhat of a narrow cast. I mean, the podcast is called The Millionaire Next Door, the overnight 25-year success story. I think a common theme is those folks who really had to work hard and build it up over decades. And that's part of our work ethic, but constantly refining and optimizing it, making it better, and introducing them to these other types of services that we provide that we may not even charge for, such as bringing in expert, attorneys, things like that, engaging them on a deep estate tax discussions so they're really well coached before they hire an attorney. We think that can add a lot of value, connecting down with their next generation, helping them complete gifts. But it's all about the fit, and that's just so important. And I think people get that. When you find the right fit, it's wonderful. You really don't want to change. And if you get the right fit, it's just very, very powerful. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where defining truly what is ideal for what it is you do is so important, to make sure that you're aligning with people that you can actually truly support them throughout the life of the relationship. Because I think most people want to feel like they're part of something. And that's definitely how you've built and designed your practice, is to not be all things to all people, so you can continually be there to elevate the experience that these people are having with you. Because when you look at your process, again, we go back to these 40, 50, 60 different things that people can do for a client throughout the life of the relationship. Well, it's been developed into 7 core areas of somebody's financial livelihood. So we look at, the wealth piece. We look at the risk piece. We look at tax strategies and legacy planning and cash and income planning, philanthropy, value-added services. There's just so many things that go into what your process can provide to somebody over the life of the relationship, that it can become very overwhelming for people, just the whole planning process. And that's where I truly believe your process has taken a world that is very complex, and you've been able to present it in much more of a simplistic fashion, which I think people are very appreciative of. And that led you truly, I believe, to the development of what you call VAST, your value added support and or service team, that over time, in your years of being in practice and working with so many wonderful clients, there are key areas in which we need to be able to bring in experts to support the evolving needs of these clients. Like you just said, estate planning and legacy planning and tax strategy. So maybe you can touch a little bit on what you've been doing with the development of that team over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm always working on what I call my value-added support team. These would be other aligned professionals who can help out clients in various circumstances and situations. I can give you multiple examples. We have a podcast, another one coming up with in-house estate planning attorney, April Rosenberry. She's an expert on estate planning, and we can coach clients through that. But she's really part of my team, but part of my value-added support team. I could give so many examples. That I have some that are kind of a little out there, but we did a podcast with a family law attorney who spoke about international child abduction, if you can believe this, of all things. She's an expert in that space. Say if a marriage is breaking up and one of the spouses takes the child, overseas to see her family. That's something I really don't expect a lot of people to have to need, and I hope they never need that. But if they do, or if that situation arises, or someone in their circle or sphere of influence, now they have a contact and I can introduce them. So I met last Friday. I had a very, very deep discussion with a local CPA in Southern California. We're going deeper to really as a service to clients. It's a husband and wife team. They have an 8-member team, but they're able to take on clients, mostly business owners. I have numerous conversations with CPAs and tax professionals, most of which who have no capacity to take anyone on, and they're overwhelmed and no one's coming into the industry. Some of these practitioners actually have told me they'd be better off if they could find a buyer for their practice than to go back and work in that practice as an employee, they'd be doing better. So I'm getting a little deep in the weeds here, but really seeking out someone who can take on clients or introductions and where we can work kind of hand in hand together with clients and some people who have the capacity, the infrastructure set up. It's more rare than you might think. So we're looking in lots of spaces for this. We had a woman who, she's got a lot of care needs now, and she's having to spend down a fair amount of her portfolio. The things she has remaining in there have appreciated all of them substantially. Like the worst performing one is up about 150%. So everything we sell off to free up the cash is creating capital gains, unfortunately. She actually asked me about a reverse mortgage, which I have not been the most huge fan of, but I do have some local experts that can counsel and guide her through that process if that's a good decision for her. That's an example of VAST, a value-added support team, linking her up so she doesn't have to go to the internet or find somebody, someone that's really a trusted professional that we've spent time with, developed a relationship, interviewed, can work hand in hand with if needed. So there's many areas like that I actually had a client who was offering to introduce me for someone I think in the Medicare area that, it was a little bit of a gap, but he listens to the podcast pretty regularly. So, when people have that specialist or someone they really want to share, they're sort of raving fans, it's great to hear. So we're always trying to build that network out and maintain that. And then as we're listening to client conversations and things going on in their lives with their children, with someone, who can we connect them with? I have a client right now who's using a roofer we use. We just had our roof redone, which is an expensive process, but they live a little bit remote. Fortunately, the person we used was able to go out and they're doing their roof. So not quite as, along the lawyer CPA lines, but if you need the roof done, it's helpful to have the right person. Yeah. So
absolutely. And again, I love hearing these stories because it's very difficult if you have a need to even know where to begin to start and go, who do we call? Who can we trust? Who do we know is going to have our best interest in mind when going through a process like this? And again, this says that you, as the advisor, have taken the time over the years to make these types of connections, to understand how these people can truly support the needs that your clients have. And not every advisor out there is willing to take the time to do that because it's a process in itself. And aligning yourself with people that understand what it is you do, who you do it for, and how you do it, so they know that they can support the types of clients that you tend to engage with. And people don't realize how time consuming that is to develop a value added support team like you've been able to accomplish. So that's a massive service just in itself to be able to come to a firm like yours, work with an advisor like you that has this process in place already. So I think that's a massive value add in itself right there. And to go even deeper there, you and I were talking about some things the other day that I found to be interesting, especially as we enter, the times we are, we're in an election year. The election's, already coming up next week. There's a lot of uncertainty going on out there. There's a lot of uncertainty with the markets. And I know that you've talked to me a little bit about alternatives that you're trying to educate yourself on to be able to present to, certain types of clients, if it makes sense. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your experiences there too, Robert.
Yeah, 100%. We're about a week out from the election. By the time this releases, it'll already be done. So I won't spend a lot of time there, but we do think there's a lot of uncertainty going forward. And in addition to that VAST, building that out, it's just been so helpful to see. Now I'm really sensitive to how other people build their practice, or even if it's a doctor, a recommendation to a doctor, what's the experience like, scheduling, going in, the follow-up, all these little details. But your question was about alternatives. We're doing a lot in this space. What that is most people are familiar with the public markets, stocks and bonds and real estate, like publicly traded. A Microsoft is publicly traded, or a bond, or even real estate like a REIT. We've been pairing folks a lot with alternative investments in the private markets. Now, this is about 90% of the economy is private. The public markets are shrinking because when you think about it, there's a lot of companies that don't really want all the hassles of being in a public market if they don't need the funds. So there are private equity, there is private debt, there is private real estate, those kind of things, usually with very high minimums, maybe $10, $25 million. That's typically more than our clients would even have, and they wouldn't be good candidates because these entities or these types of things are serving institutional type clients like a Yale endowment, Harvard endowment, a sovereign wealth fund like Norway or Saudi Arabia, that kind of thing, large sophisticated investors. We can now offer them exposure to that and avoid those minimums, but they're very uncorrelated with the public stock markets that they're probably over allocated to, especially if they have a 401k plan or something like that. They're just not going to have any of these things. And they've tended to be higher return in many cases and lower risk. I had a client I introduced to them just last week, one in Texas. He happens to work for a company, a private jet company, NetJets. So his business is flying these very well-to-do people all over. And he says he's heard a lot about these and he understands these people do extremely well, but yet he had no idea how to access or if he would even qualify. Well, we explained it to him how we can get that kind of access for the right people in the right context with all the disclaimers and making sure they understand what they're getting into. Sometimes these are really good additions to their current portfolio and will help smooth out returns, diversify. And, in the public equity side, it gives them exposure to things like a SpaceX or an OpenAI that they've never had exposure to. We've found that there's a lot of interest in that. A lot of people want access to that. I've had a number of podcasts on this topic, but there's sort of a democratization happening where this is becoming more widely available to people a little bit further down the wealth management scale that we tend to deal with versus large institutions or family offices. And it's been great. The returns have been really strong. It's been really good to build these into portfolios. But most folks do not have the experience, the training. They don't understand these things. They don't want to go into them on their own. There's a lot of pitfalls with a lot of them that aren't well run. So you want to have them researched and vetted out. And we do that. We kind of like a custom, shaman or guide or meal planner for them. And it's been a very big value driver. And people appreciate it, and they didn't even know to ask about it in the past. And a lot of do-it-yourselfers just didn't know this was even a thing or how they would go about it. So we're bringing it up with clients, and we're integrating that where it's appropriate. And that's been a really good evolution and makes me feel much better about, how we're positioned with things.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's a testament to you taking the time to educate yourself on how you can potentially incorporate this into the overall plan for your clients as a potential piece and giving them access to things that they normally wouldn't have on their own. Like you said, a lot of these are institutional type funds that need multiple millions of dollars to even get into, and you're able to bring it to them as an opportunity, as a piece of their portfolio. So again, that's a service that I truly believe that you provide to your clients that really, again, kind of goes unnoticed, but taking your time to educate yourself. These are those things that are going on behind the scenes that not many people get to see day in and day out, and just assume that, again, they're coming to an advisor to engage and be put into a portfolio, whatever that looks like. And a lot of times the relationship is built on that product's pricing performance, where I think your stance is people, practice, process. And I think that's truly the differentiator that I see in what it is you do for your clients versus other things and other situations that I've seen out there before. So again, going back to the actual process itself, we were talking about the whole fit there. And once you've aligned yourself with somebody, you're able to provide, I think, an additional service that most don't have the time or the ability to truly be able to do. And that is what we call your sounding board process. And I truly feel like for an extended period of time, we're going to be in a position where I think a lot of people that don't have the alignment with someone like you may feel a little bit apprehensive about the markets or the economy and just kind of what we're seeing out there right now. So maybe you just want to remind us about what your approach is there in relation to that sounding board process that you provide to folks.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Mike. The sounding board is huge. It's basically we have an advisory experience. So we encourage folks to ask questions. I'm also highly trained to listen for things that I hear that might mean something, but engage in a process. If you hear of something, if you're wondering about it, if you're having an issue, a common one is I'm getting crushed on taxes. That's a common theme. So what kinds of things can be done? That might be a discussion on the tax efficiency, but to have that conversation, let us know if you have an issue. Trying to think, I'm really worried about this election or what happens if this or where the state of the deficit. Let's having a sounding board conversation. Let's talk about how this looked. What did past elections do? What are the issues that are coming up? We have discussions around that. So, or how do these fit in with your tax planning? Sometimes people have strategies in mind, and I'm like, that's really going to affect your taxes, and you should have a conversation with your CPA. I'd be happy to participate in that. But sounding board really on anything. Let us know. Sometimes I don't know the answer, but a lot of times there's someone within that value-added support team network that could be of great benefit, or I just may know. Or if something's an issue for you, let's have a conversation. So as we say, when we do that and we share those thoughts together, we generally can kind of make better decisions together. It's a partner. A lot of folks don't have a partner for this kind of a process. They're doing it all on their own. Or let's say you're a single person, or you've lost a spouse, or your spouse isn't involved in this. Talking with the professional to get a second opinion. Even I talk about things with my doctor that I know are probably a good idea or maybe not. I want to get their opinion. I still get to make that decision, but I want the value of their wisdom because I know they see cases all the time. And so it's not like just going out into the internet, finding something out in the vast sea of data out there, most of which are driven by commercial interests and marketing and getting you to buy something or sort of monetizing your curiosity. So it's a true trusted relationship, and all these sort of that pyramid of investment management, comprehensive financial planning, risk management, tax planning. We're looking at it through all those lenses to help people make really good decisions. And if we do that together, I just think we stack the probabilities higher of making real good decisions.
Yeah, that's so good, Robert. Again, when it comes to sounding board, and I've always loved that as a service, that it's your willingness to be able to do that for people that are important to you at the end of the day. And again, taking the complex situation and listening, like you said, and then trying to make that as simplistic for somebody as possible. And just the way that you engage with clients as well. I think you do a really good job of kind of setting expectations, bringing an understanding of what people can expect next as part of the process there. So after you've engaged with somebody in sounding board, maybe you've had a conversation, maybe you can support them. I think it's important for them to understand, what makes you different. How do you engage with folks as part of your process? And we talked about fit and getting full clarity on that before we even take the next steps together in this relationship. But once both of you have come to a mutual decision that this just makes sense, this just feels right, I can support you. Talk us through a little bit more about what does that look like after you've both come to the conclusion that it makes sense to take the next steps together in this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. We have what's called an onboarding process. So as you're starting to see a theme, we have a fit process, we have a sounding board process, an onboarding process. This would be how we actually engage together and how that would work. So we just walk clients through real simply, or if we've decided there's a mutual good fit, let's move ahead. we're about high tech and high touch. So typically we can send them documents via a DocuSign, something that's quite easy to access. We can help them through the little security questions if needed, but we explain what that's going to look like. And in some cases, people can engage us remotely, very simply, in about 30 minutes if they want to. There are some folks who might be a little more old school. We could literally send out physical documents or overnight something to them. But we integrate all that. We watch it real close and we keep them posted as those, maybe they're moving over some assets or maybe they're linking the accounts to us. In some cases, we're linked up within, 24, 48 hours. And then all of a sudden we're kind of on the case. It's a big deal, right? Because let's say you engage someone else. It might take some time before they're truly on the case. Well, we're on it and we're reviewing everything and we're already giving them objective advisory feedback right away and starting that whole relationship process to let them know what's good in there, what's bad, what needs to change up, what's consistent with their lifestyle, with what they're looking for, all those kind of things. But we activate that on board process pretty seamlessly. And that's been a wonderful evolution through the technology. I really dislike paperwork. So to get everything done electronically is great, at their speed or where they could do it on their cell phone. My assistant is absolutely amazing at walking people through that. But we want to make sure the fit's there, the comfort, and then sort of just being on top of it with access and, eyes and ears on it all the time and visibility and transparency. And people really like that. They like it when they know what to expect, what's coming, the time frame, and then those things all get delivered and acted upon. It's really, really satisfying.
Well, and I think that's important for people to realize too, that, you don't need to be right around the corner in order to engage with somebody, that you can work with somebody regardless of their proximity in the States, virtually, with just the continued evolution of technology, that you're able to provide your services, your processes to people all over the country. And again, I think certain people are hesitant about working with an advisor for a number of reasons out there. But for people that are listening to this, understanding that there is truly a process in place to make this simplistic. It's tried and true, and it's evolved over your years of being in practice. But maybe there's one piece of advice, Robert, that you as an advisor who've been in practice as long as you have, who is hesitant about working with an advisor, what do you think that might be?
Well, that's great. It is interesting, the evolution as we kind of start to wrap up and wind down the podcast for now. Yeah, people used to always come in person, and there was so many in-person meetings, and I still do a number of them if and when people prefer them. But a lot of times folks, they don't really want that. They're fine once we know each other. Even engaging out of state, we have conversations, we can do Zooms or simple phone call. They're fine not having to come in, and they don't care, even if they're living in Texas, that we maybe sometimes we'll meet, sometimes we don't meet, but there's still that relationship and trust that can go on, and they just want good advice, and they'd really like minimal disruption in their life. So maybe they're literally sitting out on their deck or on their boat or visiting grandchildren, and they just want to engage, get an answer, and move forward. Yep. Maybe they don't want to get dressed up and have a formal meeting and drive in and park and get validated. And there may be times when they do. I had a woman who really wanted to come in and really needed to see it visually recently, so we very much accommodated that. But there's others who are just thrilled to be in and out of the conversation, 20 minutes, as long as it needs to take to get where we need to be. I have one coming up on Wednesday with someone he moved from the West Coast all the way to Pennsylvania. So we're just going to do that through a simple phone call, but all the trust has been developed. It's been wonderful. The start of my career could have imagined, I used to come in and be broker of the day at 6 a.m. at Merrill Lynch. Well, we don't always have to do that, but we can do so much mobily, or even while I'm traveling, if I can get a Wi-Fi signal. I have people in, their motorhome who are seeing national parks that are taking a few minutes out to engage us. It's people reaching out from Spain, from all over the world, where they're checking items off their bucket list. But we still need to get something done. So that's been amazing and kind of freeing, I think, on both sides. And it's just the new norm. We kind of pivoted right after COVID, but I like that flow and just being available at any given moment, even with my doctor now too. You send a note and they respond, and you don't always have to go in and sit in that waiting room. And, it's nice just to get answers. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's just important for people to realize that you have a process in place, whether it's in person or it's virtually. There's going to be that definitive number one. Is there a fit? If so, then I know you do a thorough kind of data and discovery session to understand and get clarity around every little thing that's important to them. And then ultimately, there's going to be a strategy for that you're going to recommend, and then steps to implementation with seamless onboarding. So again, that's absolutely what I love about what your process provides. And I think this has been very beneficial today for people just to get clarity around all the different things that you're doing to continually evolve your process, make it that much better, and just enhance the overall experience that people and households are having with you. So was there anything else that you wanted to mention at all today, Robert, to your listeners before we wrapped up?
No, Mike, I think that's great. I mean, just kind of summarizing, it is really all about the fit. And the way we determine the fit is just have a conversation, let them know the services, how we engage, what it feels like to be our client, all the things going on. If you're interested in having that conversation, please reach out. If you know someone who's considering it, or something's changing, or they're not maybe feeling it from their financial advisor, or they're not sure that person has evolved and is continually refining and optimizing their process, let us know. We'd be happy to engage. We'd be happy to share that sort of a one sheet, the 42 things we do for you, just to let you know all the things we might be capable of doing. But it's really a lot of these sounding board conversations and just a comfort level and a fit. And we're basically interested in super lifelong relationships that are a good fit. And when they're a good fit, they just flow so much better. I mean, we go through a lot of ups and downs in life and markets and situations and health issues and some challenging spaces. So you really want that right fit, someone you're comfortable with, someone who's open, someone who's transparent, someone who's on the cutting edge of things as they're changing and evolving. And believe me, this is one of the fastest evolving industries there is, and people's lives are changing with longevity and health and just things going on in the world today. So an engaged
Agreed.
partner is really important, but it's all about that fit and the comfort level. And then when you get that right fit, it's really satisfying on both sides of it. I mean, a lot of my remuneration, I say these days, is just helping people through maybe some challenging things that they needed some help with. And God knows there's a number of things I need help with that I feel fortunate to have people in my life who can assist and partner with to help me, when I need some help. So I think it just makes life a lot easier and simplifies it. But please feel free to reach out or share this with folks. We'd be happy to share that document with us, or just give us a call. You can email us, you can call us. We'd be happy to help. I really appreciate your help in the process, Mike, of evolving this process. And it just, that's the reason I've got so much energy to really help and work with folks for a long time coming. My goal in the future might be a little more along the lines of 52 long weekends, or at least to stop working weekends and nights. But short of that, I plan to be doing this a long time with right fit clients, because there's just a lot of good chemistry and we can help them. And generally they're very, very appreciative, and it's very satisfying to be an engaged partner for them and watch them grow and just get through things and share, the successes and maybe some of the challenges or challenges of life that come up. But that's what life is. And we're engaged. We show up. We're there. Please reach out if we can be of any help.
Well, again, I want to thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. You and I have had the opportunity to work together now for a few years, and I love seeing the evolution of your practice and your process, and you're always continually working on yourself. You're working on that process and you're doing it for the betterment of the experience you're providing to your clients. So always a pleasure, Robert. And again, thanks for having me on today.
Mike, thank you. And thanks for helping. You've helped evolve that process, and you're a really key sort of thought partner for me too. So I don't know that the people I work with necessarily know you or see that, but this is one way of letting them know we're never satisfied with, no matter how dialed in it is, we're always trying to make it a little bit better. And you've been an amazing steward and partner for that. So thanks for being here.
Yep, I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Next Door podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Signature Estate and Investment Advisors. Signature Estate and Investment Advisors, LLC, SEIA, is an SEC registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. Securities offered through Signature Estate Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through SEIA, LLC, 2121 Avenue of the Stars, Suite 1600, Los Angeles, California, 90067. Telephone number 310-712-2323.
All investing involves risk. Past performance does not indicate future results. Specific products discussed are not suitable for all investors.